Shalom uvracha. Greetings and blessings. That's the way the Rebbe would start his letters. This past Shabbos, we read Parshat Yisro, or Yisro, in which we read the 10 Commandments. The Big Ten. There are 613 total, 248 positive commandments, 365 negative, and the Big Ten that encapsulates all of them. And interestingly, this running commentary is number 248, which is the number of positive commandments. I wanted to give a little shout out to my daughter, Shema Sapo, who had a baby girl a few days ago on Chaf Shvat, the 20th of Shvat, and she was named on Chaf Beis Shvat, the 22nd of Shvat, the yahrzeit of the Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, the Rebbe's wife, and she was named Mushka. Surprise, surprise. May she have a complete and healthy healing in every way that a woman who gives birth needs, and the baby in her, and everyone should be healthy and happy forever. So mazel tov on that. And also shout out to the women of the world who are now gathered in Crown Heights for the Kinus HaShluchos, for the International Shluchos Conference. My wife Sarah is on the team, the staff of tonight's banquet. You could see it probably on chabad.org/live or something like that. Check it out tonight. I don't know what time, 5 p.m. or so. Look for it. It's gonna be inspiring. But back to this week's questions. It's a beautiful novel teaching from the Rebbe about the 10 Commandments that I just recently learned that is extraordinary. And I'd like to share it with you. As part of the Likutei Sichos project, I'm doing 2 little snippets of the last week's Torah portion. Do stones have feelings? And what can we learn from a stone in respect to man and God, and in the way we respect man and God? And what's a Kal VaChomer? You may have heard that term before. Kal VaChomer. It's one of the 13 principles that the Talmud uses to extract laws. What does it mean? We'll talk about that today and more. The first talk. We just learned the 10 Commandments in this Torah portion in Yisro. The 10 Commandments were set on 2 tablets. The first 5 were known to be man to God. The second 5 of the commandments are known to be usually organized as man to man. The first 5 are spiritual, the second 5 are more mundane. That's how people generally classify them. The Rebbe teaches something very different today, which is really special. The question in that approach is, what's with the 5th commandment to honor your parents? Is it something between man to God or between man to man? And based on that approach, honoring your parents is man to God, not man to man. Anyway, moving on. At the end of this week's Torah portion, the very last commandment, mitzvah, talks about the altar. They would go, the Kohanim, the priests, would go up to a tall altar. There are different sizes of the altar, of the Mizbeach, in different locations, in the Mishkan, in the desert, or in the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. One was 3 amos long, which is about 10 feet high. The other one was 10 amos, which is about 30 feet high. Either way, they needed to get up to the altar to bring the animals, to drag the big cows and the bulls and the sheep up there, and the birds. And they needed to get up there. The Torah says, "V'lo ta'ala al ma'alot al mizbechi," or something like that. It says, don't use steps to climb the altar. Make a ramp that you can go gradually up. That's the very final mitzvah in this week's Torah portion that talks about the great lofty things about the 10 Commandments. One would imagine it's a bit strange talking about the altar, about the stairs of the altar, about the way to get up an altar. What does it have to do with anything? Anyway, Rashi, there's lots of commentary, but Rashi, the biblical commentary, says when you go upstairs, when a person walks upstairs, then their gait can be a bit widened, and it could be indecent to the stone stairs below. And therefore, God is telling us to create a ramp and walk up the ramp slowly, carefully, so as not to expose yourself to the stones. Interesting enough. But then Rashi teaches a Kal VaChomer, and he says, Uma, and just as, what if the stones, who have no intelligence and no feelings of humiliation, they don't know they're enough to be humiliated. The Torah is chas alehem, is careful about them, for a minhag bizayon, words of Rashi, for a conduct of disgrace. The Torah is careful about that. For the stones, Kal VaChomer, how much more so a person who does have feelings, intelligence, to have feelings to be humiliated, and a person who is created in the image of God. How much more so do we have to respect a person? So Rashi teaches that basic lesson that the Torah, God is telling us, respect the stones. And Rashi says if you need to respect the stones, how much more so you need to respect mankind. But he also gives reasoning. And he says the stones, they have no feelings, but they are needed for something. There's a purpose for the stones. They're there as a ramp to the altar. But the humans who have intelligence and can be humiliated need to be extra careful. Moving on, says the Rebbe, there's a lot of discussion about this, but the point that I'd like to share with you today, the Rebbe says, look a little deeper and you see two extraordinary lessons. Number one is that the Kohanim, the priests who would go up the altar, they wore pants. It's one of the biblical mandated clothing. You need to wear pants, even though they had a robe also. But they also wore pants. So there was no exposure whatsoever from their body to the stones. So if there's no exposure, then who cares? So the Rebbe says, here the Torah is teaching us, and Rashi was careful in the usage of his words, said that we need to be careful about minhag bizayon. Minhag bizayon means conduct of disgrace. It doesn't mean something that's actually disgraceful. Minhag means something that can be interpreted as disgraceful. So somebody from the outside looking at the Kohen with a robe, not knowing that he's wearing pants, strange situation there, but he might think, oh, this Kohen is exposing himself to the stones. Never really happened. But because it could be interpreted as such, says the Rebbe, that's what the Torah is telling us, we should be extra careful in that. Says the Rebbe, how much more so when we treat our fellow man. We need to be careful to know how much more so when we treat our fellow man. We need to be careful to not do anything that could be interpreted as disgraceful from an unknowing, from the untrained eye, from an unknowing outsider. That's one thing. Another lesson, says the Rebbe, is that very powerful lesson. And this moves on to the novel teaching of the Ten Commandments. The Rebbe says that why is it important for us to respect these stones? If they're stones, they have no feelings. And the reason is because the stone's use is to serve the Kohanim, the priests, going up to the altar to do the service of Hashem. So when we respect the stones, we're respecting the priests, the Kohanim, who are using them. Says the Rebbe. Rashi, when he explained this, he said that when to Kal VaChomer, you need to respect how much more so, Kal VaChomer is how much more so, if you need to respect the stones, how much more so you need to respect mankind who was created in the image of God. So Rashi says if you respect a human being, we are created in the image of God. Automatically you are respecting the human's creator. That's why it's so important. And just, there's more, but for the play on the words, for the explanation of the words, Kal VaChomer. The words Kal VaChomer in Hebrew literally mean light or lenient, and Chomer means harsh or serious or severe or strict. So two opposites. In Latin, they call it an argument a fortiori, which is an argument of the stronger case. When you have a situation where the ruling is such in a simpler case, in a lower level case, and you say how much more so it will apply in a stronger case. That's a Kal VaChomer. So here, Rashi tells us, and the Rebbe elaborates, that if the Torah is mandating us to respect stones, Kal VaChomer, how much more so we are required to respect humans. And why? Because we're created in the image of God. And so when we respect the human, we're really respecting God. And the Rebbe takes it to the Ten Commandments in the most beautiful way. And he says, the Ten Commandments are known to be with this division, as we mentioned earlier, that there's five, the first five between man to God, the second five between man to man. They're simple stuff. They're simple civil laws of respect, of civilization, of humanity. Says the Rebbe, it's not really true. And he says it in a two-pronged level. He says not only are the second half also between man to God, because God commanded them. So that itself says, since God commanded, do not kill, do not steal, etc., etc., so it's already respecting God when you respect man. Not only that, but since mankind is created in the image of God, when you respect man, you're automatically respecting God. That's the key. So the second five, the second Ten Commandments, when you're respecting mankind, you're actually respecting God Almighty. I thought that was a beautiful thing to share in this, I don't know if I should say this or not, but there's some people who, different strokes for different folks. Some people who say, I'm not into this kosher, Shabbos, tefillin, holidays. I'm not into the Jewish rituals, but I want to be nice to my neighbor. I want to be nice to my friend. The Torah tells us that is of extreme value, because when you're nice to your friends, when you're gracious to another, you're really kind to God. And the Rebbe says it, when you're not disrespectful to your humans, that means you're also not disrespectful to God, but how much more so in the positive, when you're respectful and loving to another human, then you are automatically respecting and loving God Almighty. And that creates a reciprocal effect. Kamayim hapanim al hapanim, or mida keneged mida, a measure for measure, where if you love God and you show kindness to God through loving kindness to other people, God showers His kindness and love on you. That was Sikha number 1. I hope I got everything. The next one, the Rebbe talks, it's a lot shorter, very short, just going to say it very quickly, is about where the Jewish people camped. It says, Vayichan, when they camped at Mount Sinai to get the Ten Commandments, is Vayichan Sham Yisro Neged Hahar, one of the most famous teachings of unity that says that the Jewish people camped. It says the word Vayichan, and he camped like one man with one heart, one purpose, one goal, in unity. And there's a lot of talk about that. There are 42 journeys in the desert, 42 encampments, stops and starts, and each one, parenthetically, is the journey of our lives. Everyone, says the Kabbalah, has 42 levels of stops and starts, of new beginnings in their lifetime, which are represented by the 42 journeys. The Jewish people journeyed from Egypt to Israel, from Mitzrayim to Eretz Yisrael. Anyway, says the Rebbe, this concept of unity, why were they united specifically at the mountain? Because usually it's okay. People are known, are expected to have different opinions. So the fact that they weren't all united 100% in the other campings, it's okay, it's understandable. But Torah has the power to unite people. And it comes in the number 3. So a lot of things about the Torah, the Midrash says, were number 3. It was given on the 3rd month, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. There were 3 days of preparation by the 3rd person, Moshe. Rabbeinu was the 3rd in his family. It's a nation of 3, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. It was given, and there's a few more 3s. Anyway, the Rebbe says that the number 3 represents true unity. Because 1 is just me, 2 is me and you, 3 is a 3rd new entity that unites us both, that combines us both. And that's the number 3. So, never went that side. I'll try it, see if the reception there is better. So basically, the number 3, the Rebbe says, you look at the Torah, it says there are 2 psukim, there are 2 verses in the Torah that are contradictory. So there's a deeper truth. Okay, it didn't work. So anyway, the Rebbe says there's a deeper truth that unites them. If there's 1 is me, you are the 2nd, the 3rd unites us both together. Like 2 verses in the Torah. Like I said, that the Torah, an example he gives was the Torah says that God came from the heavens to give the Torah. Another verse says he was in the earth, in the mountain. So a 3rd verse says that he bent the heavens down to the mountain. Anyway, it brings the truth is revealed in the 3rd and number 3. And the Rebbe says, generally speaking, it's the concept of Halacha. There are different opinions all the time in the Talmud and everywhere about different matters of Judaism, but then they get solidified in Halacha. Halacha is the Jewish law. In the Jewish law, they're all solidified and they're united. All the opinions are united into one conduct that everyone agrees upon. And that, says the Rebbe, is the number 3, the power of number 3. And the Rebbe said that when it comes to the Halacha, you see, there are 2 schools of thought. Beis Shamai and Beis Hillel, or Shamai and Hillel were 2 great leaders, and they both constantly argued or debated about different rules. And most of the time, the law was like Hillel. The question is why? The Rebbe says because Hillel's characteristic was humility. He was humble, and when you're truly humble, you're able to absorb the Torah and get the Torah the way it's meant to be. And that's the bottom line. You're able to understand the Halacha the way it's meant to be. And if you don't get the Halacha the way it's meant to be, that means you're just not humble enough. So you need to be a little bit more humble, tweak your humility, and you'll understand, your mind will align with the Halacha, says the Rebbe. And finally, so the Rebbe says, why? It's the Talmud. This explains why the Talmud starts. It talks about the laws of Shema. And it ends with, the Talmud ends with Rabbi Hanani ben Akashem. It says, Kal VaChomer halachos b'chol yom muftach l'shehu ben olam haba. Whoever studies halacha every day, he has a share in the world to come. And it talks about halacha. Basically, the Rebbe says it starts with Shema, because Shema talks about Shema talks about our humility, our surrendering to God Almighty, and saying our expressing our God's unity, His oneness, that God is everything, and and is everything, and we're all part of that unity. And that's what the Shema is. And we need that humility in order to get to the understanding the end story, which is the Halacha. Anyway, God bless you all. This was for Parshas Yisro from last week. God willing, I will learn again something for this week's Parsha B'Shalach and share it with you soon. God bless you all. Have a great day, in regards to the world.